I was thinking about it. So it's a little story. So I'll tell you this little story. This husband and wife, they sit at their kitchen table every morning and have breakfast. So if you recognize this, I mean, they have breakfast, in the morning, and they sit there and have their coffee. I'm gussing this up. But anyway, so they have some neighbors who move in across the road, right? So this is the next lot over with a little fence, and so there's a clothesline where they, to hang out the clothes. And so, and the neighbors, the next door neighbor, she hangs out, some things just to dry in the wind, right? Some sheets and things. So the first time that she's done a wash, and so the people are sitting at the table. Do you recognize? Okay. So the first time the people were sitting at the table, the man and the woman, Gus and June, let's call them. Do you like that, Gus and June? So June is looking at them and she says, "My God, she does not wash her clothes very well. That's the dingiest looking things I ever saw, right?" Gus just sort of said, "Okay." Mm. So then about two weeks later, next time washing, whenever the washing is it 2 weeks? Probably not, right? Beverly, it's sooner than 2 weeks. So anyway, then they do it again. A few days later, they put the clothes out, the white things. And so there she is. June says, "Good, look at that. I mean, this is ridiculous. They're just dingy. Those clothes are so dingy." She is not a very good housekeeper. I don't think I would probably want to meet her. I don't think that we're going to go next door and give them, it's like some gift, welcome them to the neighborhood. Who's going to welcome someone who is so sloppy and doesn't care about cleanliness? Cleanliness is next to godliness, people. You do know that, don't you? So then, like the third week comes, so all of a sudden, so they get up for their breakfast, and she looks out the window, and there's the clothing. And she says, "Well, someone has told her my story. Someone has heard I told her that the neighbors are complaining because look at that. Those clothes are as white as snow." And Gus says, "Yeah, and it may be because I just washed our windows." Has anyone heard that before?
Good point.
So that's a really wonderful story. And I guess I was thinking about it last night because of something we were talking about in the class yesterday. So I guess that just will lead me to. So I remember when my mother had cataract surgery about, it's a long time ago now, maybe 15, 20 years ago. I remember that she called me on the phone. She lived in Tennessee. And she called me on the phone, and she said, "Well," this was like 3 or 4 days later. She said, "Well," I said, how's it going? How do you feel? Has your eye recovered? And she said, "Well," she said, she said, it's wonderful, but she said, it's also quite terrible. She said, "I didn't realize I'm this old." She said, "I didn't know I had wrinkles." She said, and she said, "It was just terrible." She said, "I just have wrinkles all over my face." I said, "Well, I said that goes with being 80 or 70. And so I'm going to have cataract surgery tomorrow morning. So I wonder if I will have a similar. My God, I thought I was 30. I'm only 45. So you know where I'm going, maybe. So there's this word that really I never really quite. I've been reading some marvelous works. Buddhist phenomenology, oh my God. And so that thing, I'm sure there's about 1,234 people in the entire world who've read that book. Really, I read it and I think, who's going to read this? I mean, the footnotes are just pages and pages after each chapter. It's extraordinary work. And he uses the term, but also another person that I like a whole lot uses the term. So, and the term is, we were talking about yesterday, when we get to the point in the development of whatever this is, that you have like seeing and hearing and tasting and touching and smelling. You have the sense doors. You have in other words the sense organ, and then you have the object, the visual object, and then you have then you're going to say like our wiring is all set up so then that then we're all set up to have the consciousness, seeing consciousness, but it requires contact, whatever contact, or it's called touch in the 12 nidanas, contact. And so out of contact, out of the seeing or hearing or smelling comes feeling. Feeling. So I've said, you all have heard me say this over and over again, but there's no one in here that's not feeling something right now. No one is. Unless you're dead and sitting up and fooling us. You can't, we're feeling every moment. The eye contact creates a feeling, the ears, there's some feeling to hearing this voice. It could be soothing to some, irritating to some, or you may just be neutral to it. So the thing that we confuse is this idea that our reaction to that, feeling good or feeling bad or feeling neutral, is to some extent, and in some of us, it could be 100%, but to some degree, it's an interpretation of reality, right? It's an interpretation. So the lady sitting at the table, of course, right, she's interpreting that the clothes are dingy because the window is dirty, right? And my mother is interpreting that her face is much younger than it is because she has cataracts. So I guess the first thing I wanted to ask you is, or this, maybe it's the last thing I want to ask you. If this is the end of our lives right here, it's probably the last thing I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you this question, and then we're going to all just fall over dead. Do you have cataracts?
Mental cataracts.
Do you have cataracts? Do you have cataracts, right? Does anybody have cataracts?
Yes, yes.
I had the surgery done 2 years ago, and it was a real eye-opener, you might say. I'm not that old.
So I guess, and so let me just change that, right? I mean, you get what I'm saying. So that let me change that. Who in here does not have cataracts? Is there anyone in this room who does not have cataracts? I mean, not physical cataracts. If you interpret, you have cataracts. If you interpret what you see as good or bad, you have cataracts. I promise. I mean, the Buddha said it, and so he was smart. So you can look at me if you want to, right? And you can say, poor Victor, he has to go tomorrow to the doctor, right? They have to do that laser. So, but that's a simple process, That's a simple process because it's physical. It's a laser, and I don't know what it does. And I don't want to think about it. But what do you do about psychic cataracts? What do you do about a film that covers your psychological eyes, if you want to call it that? Your psychic eyes, if you want to call it that. Like when they talk, certainly in Zen you hear it a lot, but you hear it. I'm not enjoying listening to me. The third eye, right? The wisdom eye, they call it the prajna eye. The Zen people, I really love that, but they talk about opening the eye of wisdom. Opening the eye of wisdom. Well, unless you've got an eye, you've got right. You've got an eye in the middle of your forehead, right? I mean, what is opening? Where is that eye of wisdom? What is that? So, I guess what I'm trying to suggest is that whatever that means metaphorically, opening the eye of wisdom, seeing with wisdom would be seeing without cataracts. So, how is it that we go to an eye surgeon, a psychic eye surgeon? I don't know. I have no idea what's coming next. And we go to this eye surgeon, and and so because we've been diagnosed with psychic cataracts. So we go to this eye surgeon, and the eye surgeon says, "Oh, it's no problem. We just do the laser here, and we're just going to work it out." How does that work? If there is no such thing as a psychic eye surgeon, right? There's no such thing as that we know of as a simple process of removing this conditioned tendency to see everything through the filter of interpretation. How many people have been paying attention to the government shutdown?
The what?
The what? I'm enjoying this tea, Travis. We could make this like a little ceremony.
Or the tea party.
What?
Or the tea party.
I was thinking it's Kool-Aid. Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
So, does anybody have the feeling that you experience the government shutdown through the lens of interpretation?
Sure enough.
As opposed to seeing clearly what is, whatever it is? I mean, it's almost impossible. It's just it's almost impossible, right? I mean, because you can only see it to some extent, and this is not everybody, because some people are truly apolitical. God bless you. But basically, right? But basically, we see it through the lens of whether we are, pro. Let's say basically liberal or basically conservative. And I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, really, I'll not like you. I'll probably punish you for it. But no, isn't it true that we're utterly convinced that we're not interpreting, that this is reality, that we're just seeing it as it is. This is as it is, as opposed to the fact that we're seeing through, that we're interpreting reality. I would suggest to you that this is perhaps the fundamental aim of Buddhism.
Of what?
Maybe the fundamental aim, aspiration of Buddhism. The fundamental aim, I would suggest. You could say the fundamental aim, Brian might say, well, wait just a minute, Victor. The fundamental aim of Buddhism is to end suffering, right? Right? You might say that's a good old Theravada person. They're very kind of slow, but never mind, you've got to deal with them. All right, so you could say the fundamental aim is to end suffering. What? Well, you have to wait and hear what I'm going to say before you decide. It may be and it may not. How would you end suffering if we agree that the fundamental aim? You don't have the answer, Buster. If we agree that the fundamental aim of Buddhism is to end suffering, I mean, which is totally it's a valid statement. I mean, it's not the only statement, because I don't know that, it depends again on which school, what tradition. But if you did say that, it would certainly be, I would say, to learn how to see clearly. If you see clearly, you won't suffer. Now, you could say, how do you see clearly? And then you could say, well, the ending of craving, for instance. I mean, but I mean, it all comes back to this ability to see what is, to see reality without interpreting it, without saying, this is bad, my life is horrible. That's an interpretation. And if those of you who are fortunate enough to have a wonderful life, right? If you have a wonderful life, right? You do, don't you?
It burdens me, yes.
But really, I mean, if that's an interpretation. I mean, I'm happy for you. It's nice to have. I mean, it's much better to have a happy, interpretation than a sad. But it's still interpretation. So I guess I just want to urge you all to sort of the idea that some of what we're doing is about removing cataracts through meditation and through study. They go together. We were working really hard yesterday, right, Janine? Mm-hmm. That's part of it too. The insistence that you can get there without some aid, can be a little bit arrogant. So I guess it's very easy for me to say that I have cataracts, because I do. So when I'm driving at night now, there's this big glow around every light. Whoa! I mean, it occurred to me last night. I was driving. Back, Andrew, our wonderful web designer who did that portrait, that picture that was made onto a canvas. And by the way, if you have not looked, Marta, hold that up. If you haven't seen the Dharma tree, take a moment and check it out. It's just absolutely wonderful. I mean, it's just wonderful. And Andrew did that, and we're going to make maybe posters out of it or T-shirts out of it. Now I have no idea what I'm talking about now. I've lost my track. So anyway, driving home last night, Andrew did this. They had this thing downtown, sound. Who knew? Who went to it? The sound. It's like all of these weird things about sound.
Yeah. The sound walk.
And art. What?
The sound walk.
Yes. And did you go? Oh no, you didn't. You had Owen, didn't you? You had the baby. All right, I went, and because I had to show up for Andrew, and so then I drove home, and I realized as I was driving home that I'm a lethal weapon now. Really, I thought I shouldn't be driving, right? Because everything. Oh, I mean, it's like glowing. So I'm making a joke, but it's not that funny. So I'm not very until I get that cleared up. I'm not going to drive it. But my point is, well, do you know what my point is? Do I know what my point is, Alice? Travis? My point is, I have all of the physical symptoms that tell me that I have cataracts. It's wonderful. I mean, it is, you know, if I didn't have them, I would not get this taken care of. Maybe wonderful is the wrong word to say, but I mean, in other words, the physical reality, it tells us, it's like, so if your body's hurting and you want to move and you're going to meditation, we get it. Who the hell knows that they have psychic cataracts in this room? I'm really serious. I've said it. Thank you. I've said it, but so that doesn't make it so, does it? And to the degree that there is something in you that finds that unacceptable, then then this is a very large problem, because I think that the first step of working with this extraordinary human problem is to own it in humility for yourself. And if you can't take that step, well, you're going to be on your way around the old wheel again. To acknowledge that, to say, I said yesterday in the class, right, I said, we should all get up in the morning and look in the mirror and say, hello, ignorance. How you doing today? But to just suppose, as you get up in the morning and as you go through the day, to just sort of like hold that idea. Oh my God, So there's the eyes, and so they don't have those cataracts that Victor's talking about. So there's this sense of seeing, and everything that I see and hear and taste and touch, that I'm seeing it and experiencing it as it really is. But the truth is, more than likely, I'm experiencing life through interpretation. This class is good and that class is bad. I cannot tell you the number of people in the past years who would come to me and they go to college, and lots of people, and they'd say, I'm not doing well in school. I hate this class. And I always kind of enjoyed it, I'd say, well, why do you hate this class so much? I'd say, I just can't stand that teacher. And then I would say, and what does that have to do with it? And then they would just look shocked. Really shocked. What do you mean, what does that have to do with it? I can't stand that teacher. Or, forget I can't stand it. The teacher's really not very good. She's really kind of stupid. Or, he's smart, but he's so boring. So the interpretation prevents you from being a good student, right? Doesn't it? Right? In other words, if you're in a class to learn, what the hell does it have to do with whether the teacher's good or bad? The material is there. The book is there. What you're learning is there. Hopefully. So I guess my point is very simple. It's really simple. I just would urge you to consider the possibility that you experience what is through the lens of your ego, which relentlessly interprets. Relentlessly. Do you know what relentlessly means? Does anyone know what relentlessly means? It means more than frequent. Relentless means a hell of a lot more frequent. More frequent than frequent. Relentless means every time you experience something, or I experience something, it's either good or bad or neutral. And we put an interpretation on it. As opposed to, I said yesterday, and I'm going to end now, but I said, see, if you all were really good, somebody would have moaned and said, oh no. Right, if I said I'm going to end now. You all should act like you didn't want me to end. I've been trying to train this butt for 20 years and still haven't pulled it off. So I was talking about pornography yesterday. It's one of my favorite subjects. So I was saying, a person can look at pornography and find it absolutely disgusting. Or you could be neutral to it too. I mean, you say, well, what the hell is that? But more often the tendency to be, rather than being neutral about it, say, but this is disgusting. And then someone else can see it as like almost the most wonderful thing in life. Right? We know that's true. Someone else can look at that and really be addicted to it. Addicted to it because it is so intoxicating and so wonderful. Now, this is hard, which is right, that it's disgusting or that it's intoxicating. Which is correct. I'm sure the Buddha would say neither. Now, if he were here, right, I could catch you to hear him say, no, that's incorrect, Victor. Okay, I said, well, I had a 50-50 chance. So, but again, that it's just, because it is just an interpretation of it. It's just the interpretation that it's disgusting. I mean, probably, the equanimous state, which is also neutrality, but the state of equanimity would be that it's neither. You can see that. You can understand either position. But so I'm just urging upon you this idea that each of us interprets our experience rather than just experience our experience, right? We interpret it. This is good and this is bad. And if you suffer, if your life has suffering, a lot of suffering, it's because you interpret things as really bad. And if your life is fairly pleasant, or more than pleasant, it's because you interpret it as pleasant. So I said that the laser, I said there was. Did I say there was no psychic laser? I think because I meant to say that. So there's no. We don't know that there's a surgeon, a living surgeon, perhaps. But for sure, the rise of wisdom at Prajna is the psychic eye surgeon. Prajna is the surgeon that can wipe away the cataract that covers our experience moment to moment. I'm not acknowledging you, Raul. I just saw your hand go up. I'm going to pretend I didn't see it.
It's going to stay up there.
Oh. And so, that's called peripheral vision. Even with cataracts, I have peripheral vision. So anyway, I'm finished with that. But I'm suggesting to you that three things. First thing, I urge you to hold in your awareness this question: am I interpreting right now? Just ask yourself the question, right? Is this real, or is this just my interpretation? Just this moment, when you're with someone, when you're seeing someone, right? When you're liking someone or disliking someone, or watching the people in Washington, and the way we're making fun of them. It's ridiculous, because the truth is, they're not children. They're really not the way people are putting them down. It's two absolutely opposing psychological views of reality. I mean, it's very serious. But so to have this capacity to just, be asking this question of yourself, rather than just walking around I almost said a very bad word. Just walking around so convinced of your own correctness. Oh, this is exactly the way it is because I see it this way, right? I mean, we all do that. It's just ridiculous. So number one, there's that. Number two, to be aware that this is why you're sitting. This is what it's about. Sitting is this process of beginning to watch what's happening in the moment, right? Just watching. And then number three, suggesting to you this idea that in fact there is a way to put a laser on the cataracts that causes us to interpret, and that laser is prajna, is wisdom, which is absolutely possible.